When you won last year, you just you knew you were going to win again. I'm sure you're very surprised that it's been a year since then. So how do you then avoid pressing or making mistakes or letting it spiral into I've got to do this again, and so now I'm going to try too hard or overstep? How do you hold yourself back from doing that when it's been a year?
Honestly, I'd really credit that to Josh Wise and Scott Speed that are kind of helping me in the Chevrolet program. We had Matt Spear, that was our mindfulness coach for the last handful of years, and my therapist as well. Just it's really not the end of the world, you may put that pressure on yourself of I got to win this race, I got to have this outcome, but it's really not that deep. You just have to execute and do your best, and if it works out, great. If not, you just adjust and go from there. And I don't mean that from a nonchalant perspective, but just more of just not putting the world on my shoulders, because I'm going to do my best. I'll do the preparation, and if it works out, that's great. And if not, we'll adjust and go forward. So it's, I hate to say it, it's really not that deep at the end of the day. I'm going to do my best, and I feel good about our chances, and our trucks are fast. And, I'll put myself against any of those guys in the truck field. Everybody's really good, but I'm confident in myself too, so.
Going back to what Jeff was asking you about, you had said effectively that it's not that deep. And I think back to your tweet earlier this week, listening to the Carl Edwards thing and the perspective.
Dude, that thing was amazing.
Right.
I thoroughly enjoyed listening to that episode.
It was pretty raw. There was a lot of good stuff from that. But when you hear that from former drivers who lived or died by their results, how does that impact your perspective on that as someone who's coming up through the ranks still?
Yeah, I think it's just nice because it doesn't put that pressure on myself. Carl had mentioned that he had in his notebook he literally said, if I win, I'm good. If I'm not, I'm going to crash out. And it's for me, I literally had that same mentality for the longest. I've kept notebooks since I started racing, and I had that mentality for a long time. And it worked at first because I would perform well and have that success. But then compared to other sports, you lose way more than you win in racing. So that was a really hard thing for me to work through. And like I mentioned, the Josh, Scott, Matt, the people in the Chevrolet program, my circle, they just really helped me work through that of just understanding to detach from the outcome and just focus on your process and not defining success or your happiness based off of how stuff at the racetrack goes, because you could do everything right. You could do your homework. You can execute it to a T, and you could hit oil on the racetrack. You could run over a pin and start at the back. You could get hit in the door and cut a tire. Literally anything could happen. So just detaching from that is the biggest thing, and honestly, it's helped me get better. That's how I ran better last year, and obviously, hopefully, we'll continue to do that this season.